Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, Vice President of Solutions Engineering for Cisco Americas, Mark Moffett. Hey, what you drinking? Boy, are we in for a treat today. Boy, are we in for a treat today. You know, there's a opportunity for me to do a lot of work with some really, really brilliant clients. And I often say to my colleagues that I seem to only work with brilliant clients. I don't know how that happens, but for whatever reason, it's the brilliant clients that I tend to work with. And it's very, very seldom when I get an opportunity to speak with them outside of the work environment. Well, that's what I'm going to get to do today, because this is someone who I met on assignment. It was kind of a random selection. You know, these 4 people you get to work with, and here are the coaches, and we got to working on some pretty significant stuff. And oh my gosh, this really turned into a 2-way leadership lesson. And I think we were like 3 sessions in before I said, dude, I got to find a way to get you on this show. So I'd like to introduce to everyone, Mr. Marcus Moffett. How are you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
I could not be better unless I was Galen Bingham, but I'm stuck being me, so we'll have to start with that.
Well, man, I'll tell you, I really did enjoy our time together, and dropped a tear or two when the engagement was coming to an end. But I knew in the back of my mind that we would have this conversation at some point. So that made me feel a little better. So, man, I got a lot I'd love to catch up with you on. But the most important question, and the question that everyone knows that kicks off this conversation. So what you drinking?
That's such a great question. I'm a little bit embarrassed by it, to be honest with you. I wish I was a whiskey drinker like you, and I'd call out Pappy or something like that, and people would be like, whoa. But Galen, I have, I think it's pomegranate juice, but that's kind of what I'm stuck with today. So for what it's worth, I know you got something a lot better on your side.
Well, hey, man, I would expect nothing less from someone who's done Ironman, and you always look like you're 22 years old. And so pomegranate juice, I get that. That's consistent with the Marcus Moffett brand. So my listeners know that that just means that I got to come with something that's going to maintain the integrity of a whiskey, jazz, and leadership podcast. So I reached for something that I used to drink this a little bit when I was gifted a bottle, and for whatever reason I steered away from it, and I was reintroduced to it, and come to find out the bottle that I was gifted is probably the more desired of the entire collection. I had no idea, and that is Henry McKenna single barrel, aged 10 years. But it's the June 9th, 2009 barrel that is supposed to be a really, really big deal. I enjoyed the bottle, and my rule of whiskey is you only drink what you like. And so I kept it on my shelf because it's what I like, but I didn't realize that this was actually a thing. So I'm gonna open this up and pour me some of this.
I can smell it from here. That's like amazing.
Pour me some of this, and and this is bottled in bond, so it's 100 proof. But like I said earlier, this is something that it was gifted to me. I appreciated it. I put it on my shelf, And when it came time for me to share with some friends, they really got a lot out of this offering, and that reminds me of this conversation. As I said before, we came together by happenstance. There was just Galen, take these group of clients, and you got a profile of this is going to be your coach, and we had to kind of figure out whether or not this was a fit. But I learned pretty quickly that you were an executive on a mission, and that you knew that you were here, yeah, to deliver results for your corporation. But I was really impressed by your desire to invest in making yourself better as a leader so that you could be better for your people. So I'm going to enjoy this, and I would love for you to share just a little bit about your background, what you do, who you are, but more importantly, what's the journey that's allowed you to get to where you are, as I get into this, Henry McKenna.
All right. While you enjoy Henry, Galen, I'll go through a brief history lesson here. But first, I'd say, look, just to tag on to what you said. In retrospect, after things happened, there was no happenstance to it. Like, interesting things happened, but I believe in this kind of energy thing. And when we came together, it was the right time. I was just starting this new job, leading our America's engineering organization here at Cisco. And although you feel like I was ready to go, the things you taught me in 3 short calls, I can assure you, and I'm not just saying this because we're on this podcast, it legitimately has helped me shape several of the things that we've moved forward on. And I look forward to catching up with you and letting you know that many of those things and what you taught me mostly provide clarity, inspire the team, and remove barriers. I was like, those 3 things are just anchored down on them. And it's been absolutely fascinating to watch that play out. But if I back up, it's been interesting. I tell people talk about a career being a jungle gym. I'm not sure what you call this thing I had, but it started, got shared with you that I grew up on a farm in deep South Mississippi. My father was a machine shop owner. And so all I knew was blue collar, hard work, sweat, working in the hay fields and sweeping floors. That was what we did for a living. Coming out of high school, unlike you, Galen, and several other people who were really smart and went to school, I decided to follow on with the School of Hard Knocks. I worked offshore drilling, roughnecking, working derricks. I spent about 8.5 years doing that. The life-defining moment was after the 3rd trip to the unemployment office. It was like, there has got to be a better way to make a living. And I still keep that little book in my bag as one of those reminders when I'm sharing with people. It's like, interesting how life evolves. Well, I landed in the Air Force, started this job called Tech Control. Little did I know that this would put me on this journey I've been on for the last 35 years. And it's really changed my life. Not that I'm not a blue collar guy. I don't think you can ever not be that. I still have my farm, still work there, love to get my hands dirty. But what's been fascinating about just lessons learned that we'll talk about today is all of this stuff added up to me finding something I was good at and then developing a real passion for it. And I think at the heart of it, it's like making sure we're taking care of people. And for us, that's our customers that are trying to solve big problems, whether it's healthcare, financial services, agriculture, you name it. We're helping people with technology get to where they need to go. So I've just had an amazing journey. And with Cisco, I started as a first line solutions engineer. I've been in every leadership role, and now I have the opportunity to lead the entire America's engineering organization. So it's been a fascinating road to get here.
Oh my gosh. Fascinating is such an appropriate word, because that's a journey that I don't know that anyone would sit down and design. I don't know that anyone in their right mind would say, okay, first I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take all of these different positions and experiences, and then ultimately I'm going to lead probably the largest and most significant technology company in the world. I'm going to head up all the smart folks that are making all the wires connect and creating that tech. I'm going to lead the engineers. I don't know that anyone would draw a line between your beginning to your ending.
No, it wouldn't happen. You're looking at a guy that I would say is still an introvert that I've taught to like be good externally, but the fact that I would even be standing in front of people trying to convince them of anything it's been a fascinating opportunity. So it's been a huge transition, but no, I don't think you can make it up. But that's the fun of life, right? You get on the journey, enjoy the opportunity you have, even though you get knocked down a few times. You just keep getting after it, and I feel like if your heart's in the right place, you do the right thing by people, good things happen.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'll tell you one of the things that I've always been impressed about our time together is, as I said before, you've got a very, very significant role in one of the most significant technology organizations on the planet, and you're leading a bunch of engineers who are really, really smart folks. But in our time together, we never really talked about technology or engineering, or you never hit me with a big word that I couldn't understand. It was always a conversation about connecting with people. So help me, because when I first had the opportunity to work with the head engineer, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to learn this whole new language. But that's not what our conversation was about, hardly at all.
No, I guess, Galen, if you back it up, and I've only thought about this recently. You have to get further down the road before you start to reverse engineer and figure out like how these things actually came together. But what I shared recently with somebody is the entire first 15 or 16 years of my career was spent looking at things from a systems perspective. So, like what's happening, how's this thing operating, and how's it delivering some sort of an outcome for business? What are all the disparate pieces and parts and those type things that you got to stitch together that deliver on that? And then you got to spend a lot of time analyzing and troubleshooting and figuring out, okay, where's the problem? And then how do you solve it? Or either what's good about it and how do you improve it? And I guess it just dawned on me after doing that for years, it's just an innate that the technology, my job is to simplify it to the point to where senior leadership in a business can understand. I'm trying to get a car out on the line. I don't need to understand how the watch is made. You just tell me how this stuff comes together to deliver the car. Well, it suddenly dawned on me that my gift through that was exactly that. But now the system happens to be a major organization made up of a lot of people and process and technology. And then from a leadership standpoint, you just constantly, as you got me to realize you're seeing the system in flux and motion all day. And when things start to get out of whack, or you're seeing something that's really an improvement opportunity, you go solve it and things continue to move. So it's the same thing in leadership. Instead of widgets and putting those together from a technology standpoint, now you're doing the same thing with people.
I love it. I love it. I want to get right into the meat of this conversation, because I love to ask my guests to help me make sense of this podcast name, because as my good friend and season 3 guest Bo Stevens said, whiskey, jazz, and leadership, that's just Galen. That's just how my brain works. And I like all three, but the metaphor is where I like to spend a lot of time with my guests. The metaphor of whiskey for me is doing what you enjoy with the folks you enjoy it with, irregardless of what other people might have to say about it. Who's not part of your crew? They don't really count a whole lot. They don't know the handshake, so they don't really matter. So that, for me, that's the metaphor of whiskey. The metaphor of jazz is this idea that regardless of what's on the sheet music, you've got to get from where you are to where you need to be, even in situations where the sheet music isn't working. It's not clicking the way it's supposed to. Last night, I had a program that I was supposed to deliver to some executives in Singapore. So 9 o'clock my time PM. That's what time we had to meet, and we had some content we were supposed to deliver, but that content did not work. We still had to get from where we were to where we needed for them to be on time and in key, because that's what they were paying for. They weren't paying for the sheet music, they were paying for the result. So for me, that's the metaphor of jazz. And then the metaphor of leadership, which is something that you and I connected on, is this idea that marketing is a lot of fun. Strategy is important. Boy, you can learn a lot from reading the theory of leadership. But at the end of the day, leadership is an action word. You've got to do something. You've got to say, today we're going to take an action. And, you got 10 minutes to get ready if you're not ready, because we're getting ready to go. And until that happens, it's just a conversation. So that's the way this metaphor fits in my head. Help me understand whether this makes sense to anyone except for me and my mom.
It absolutely makes sense. It's funny you mentioned whiskey in that context, because I was listening to a speaker, and I thought it was pretty fascinating. He was speaking to a bunch of young people, and he said, look, you'll get these people that'll come up on stage and they'll tell you to follow your passion. And I'm going to tell you that's BS. What you need to do is find something you're good at and then get passionate about it. And I thought that was like really incredible, because often people, I think, get hung up and they're not happy at work, and they can never seem to find a place that they're happy with. And it's because at the end of the day, they're chasing money, chasing a title, or they're trying to figure out how to live out a passion. I'm like, man, get good at a craft, bang on it. And then what you'll start to realize is that, man, this is pretty impressive. You can build your passion around something. That's what happened with me with technology. And then what you said about jazz, it's like classic Mark Moffett, because I feel funny story, Galen. Even this week, I had a couple of all hands with my teams. And most of the comms people that I work with have worked with leaders before that have to have everything really scripted, like every word. And you just like aim me in the right direction. I'll share with you what I want to communicate. And then when I show up, I'll figure out what I'm going to say when I get there. And I think part of that has just been the way that, again, back to that systems concept and viewing things, is nothing is ever as planned, and nothing's ever going to happen like you expect it to. So I think that whole idea of what you said about jazz, you've got to be a great musician, but you've got to go with the flow and the audience and what's happening, and kind of let that thing play out. And then lastly, on leadership, man, I couldn't not agree with you more. People look at it as position. You're only as good as a leader as those folks following you allow you to be. And I think that what people want to see is not a lot of loud talk and necessarily charisma. They want to see people that are quote unquote in the trenches and getting out there and mixing it up and making it real for them. And so that's kind of how I track to those and what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I love it. And I had a very similar conversation with some future C-suite executives, literally just this past week, with the Executive Leadership Council in New Orleans. And, we talked about how it's so important to have a very clear vision and to be able to communicate a very clear vision of where you want the organization to go. And the downside of not having a very clear vision is that people will meander around the organization trying and hoping that they're doing a good job, but not having a clear picture of what a good job looks like. And one of the things, as I said, that I was really, really excited to share with you, and you seem to get a lot of energy around this idea of painting a very clear picture. It's not my job to necessarily wire every machine, but can I show you what success looks like so that you can then bring your skills, you can bring your talents to help me create that picture.
Yeah, and Galen, you really did help me shape a couple of things. I think what you just said is I always considered myself more of an execution guy and fairly good at strategy, but I never saw myself as a vision person. But when I really started to sit down and think about it, your point was like, Mark, you're the one that's giving people the ideas and things we want to accomplish. And so I went back and I really reshaped, and it was just really simple things. Look, I want Cisco to regain its prominence in the industry as the number one networking provider on the planet. That was it. And I said, the four things we're going to do is we're going to get our team back to a level of technical competency that is second to none in the industry. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to represent our customers to make sure that we produce products and solutions that they love and want to buy. The third is we're going to make sure our partners understand that we are the partner to partner with in the industry. And fourth, we're going to dominate this thing I call secure network. And what's been fascinating about it is people have latched onto it. So that secure networking thing, literally, if you saw Cisco Live recently, which is our big engineering event we have annually, Chuck Robbins got up on stage and said, our customers have been asking us to get back to being a networking company. I literally stood up and clapped. And I was like, our CEO finally came around to where I've been for the last couple of years, tongue in cheek. But it's been fun to watch that play out and to see how when you're crisp and tight on that, people really do latch onto it because you believe it. You're confident, and then your confidence builds their confidence. So it's been amazing to kind of follow that track.
Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.